All right. So, on the heels of the good news for trans people, or at least trans women in New York, but trans people in general, I would hope, let's talk about colleges that function in states with anti-LGBTQ plus policies. Well, they're losing students, and this should come as a shock to absolutely nobody. Except for possibly the dipshits who created the policies to begin with. Because, let's face it, they seem to be in this, live in this world where they think most people agree with them. And so that their policies will not only be popular, but will actually help them instead of hurt them. So let's get to the article. As legislatures across the country pass bills that restrict abortion and LGBTQ plus rights, colleges within those states are increasingly finding themselves trapped and losing students to elsewhere, according to reporting from The Hill. I think we are in a place and a time where colleges are increasingly being seen as political places, and so it makes every sense that students would be aware of this as they're making decisions about where to enroll, and that they would factor that into whether or not this is an institution they want to apply to, said Catherine Meyer, fellow in the Brown Center on Education Policy with the Brookings Institution, to The Hill. Now, obviously that's part of it, because a lot of people develop their political identity in college because they talk to a bunch of people, they talk to professors, they learn stuff. So, yeah, in that regard, they are considered political institutions. And the fact that, there were like sit-ins, to try to get their schools to divest from stock that benefits Israel. So that's true that they are political institutions. The problem is that I wouldn't say it's just the college's fault that this is happening, because I could see how people would be concerned that if they happen to live in a state that is against these policies, that you might think that you're going to be an outlier. But just the fact that these policies exist might force the hand of these colleges to be the hand of the government and prevent certain things from happening. Like in Florida, they have Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which I think has hit colleges now. So, did I say Don't Ask, Don't Tell? Don't Say Gay. So, yeah, I could see why, even though the colleges themselves don't agree with it, they have to live with the fact that they might be forced to police their students in the way that the government wants them to, simply because these policies exist. So it might not necessarily be that the institution is seen as political, but how these government policies, government laws might affect students who go there, especially if you're part of the groups that these states are against, if that makes any sense. According to a poll from the Art and Science Group, 28% of prospective students ruled out attending colleges because of politics, with 75% of liberals ruling out schools because of state policies on abortion and LGBTQ plus rights. 66% of conservatives did the same for schools in states they deemed too liberal. Texas was the most commonly excluded states. And again, I can see both sides of this. Obviously, if you're a liberal going to a state with an anti-abortion policy, well, what do college students do? They have relationships, they have sex, they could get pregnant. Obviously, you do not want to be pregnant in a state where you might need an abortion and can't have access to it. I mean, college life is tough enough. You don't need that. Or if you're an LGBT plus person, you obviously don't want to live in a state where you're treated as a second-class citizen. So that makes sense. And if you're an ally, you might feel icky giving money to a state that endorses these policies. And and now with conservatives, this isn't so much because conservative voices aren't valued on college campuses. It's the fact that the very conservative politicians they listen to basically demonize these institutions, especially those in liberal states. They are afraid that they will, be accosted by a gay, trans, black student. I honestly do not know what goes through their heads, but liberal institutions are demonized. Of course, that could be said for most colleges, even those that aren't in liberal states, but that's a different story. So, yeah, if you're in a community that demonizes certain schools simply because of what they think goes on, of course you're not going to want to go to those schools if you're a good little conservative and don't like A, B, C, and D. Whatever that happens to be. Like, I figure that most conservatives wouldn't want to come to Madison because it's known as a liberal town. And the only thing that might lure them in is the fact that it's a party school. Of course, you have to be careful because of Wisconsin's reputation as a drinking state, which we are. People overdo it because they think that they need to drink way too much alcohol to fit in. And that's not necessarily what we mean by it's a drinking state. Are there some people who do stupid shit and drink too much? Of course. You have that everywhere. So maybe that might appeal to some people, or maybe that'll turn people off, but it has zero to do with politics. But it is a liberal school. It is a liberal school. It's in a liberal city. So I could see how it could turn off conservatives. But at the same time, college is supposed to be about exposing yourself to different people. That is the whole point of college. Because you get to meet people from other parts of the country, other parts of the world, depending on how vast the reach is, because you'll have people from other countries, whether it be study abroad or some other program. So, but yeah, so unless there are policies in that state which you are against, like the abortion issue or LGBT plus issues or DEI in general. On the conservative side, I don't know what that would be. That you're not allowed to shit on human beings, that you aren't allowed to perpetuate a hate crime. I mean, I honestly don't know why conservatives would turn down a school, except for the incessantly being told your voice won't be heard or you'll be marginalized, which you hear a lot. I mean, will there be some students who do that? Of course. I mean, just like in any other walk of life, that you'll have some students who will want to engage you and some students who will say, stay the hell away from me. But I don't see that as a good enough reason. Now, if you disagree with the policies of the state, that I can see as a legit reason, because especially if it affects you. Because obviously you don't want to go to school in a state where your life is at risk, where you feel like you would have no recourse if this or this happened. Anyway, moving on. Schools can try to be very public about being welcoming of everybody with different opinions and stuff like that. Economics professor Richard Starts of the University of California, Santa Barbara told The Hill. I'm not so sure when you're talking about high school students who are looking for where to go, whether it's really very easy to get that message across in any way. Exactly what I was saying. The whole point of college is to introduce you to different opinions. It's not supposed to be, this opinion is sacrosanct. That is not the point of college. Are there going to be clubs on college campuses who do that? Possibly. But that's not the point of the school proper. And of course, it's also true that there are actually realistic restrictions in a bunch of states. So, there are states that have made a decision that universities, public ones, can't have DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion, offices, or these restrictions on abortion. And there are various examples like that the schools really don't have any control over, and it may matter to people. Exactly what I've been saying. The states that have restricted DEI offices include Florida and Texas. Many more have it on the chopping block with proposed bills. Kevin McClure, Associate Professor of Higher Education at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, said to The Hill, I mean, it's a challenge because there are certain dimensions of this where the institution has no control and they are going to be asked to implement or enforce state policy. And in my experience, the vast majority of institutions are going to do that. They're going to comply with that and are not necessarily going to, attempt to directly kind of challenge or to circumvent state policy. And so that means that there are certain laws that are going to be passed that are going to have ramifications for college students as well. And this is the Associate Professor of Higher Education, and that's how he talks. Oh boy. All right. He added, I think some institutions are likely trying to emphasize that despite what may be happening in the state, there are different realities in their particular area, and that there is a greater diversity of students and viewpoints that you can find there that creates somewhat of an island, as it were, within the greater political context of the state. What we have to do is double down on the role of higher education, how we are educating the next generations of leaders, and what makes each institution unique, so that students can find the place that's the right fit, said Heidi Tsu, Assistant Vice President of National Engagement for the American Council on Education, to the Hill. I think what this survey is showing is that the political noise that is generated, it doesn't suit anyone. If students are making these decisions based on their desire to avoid politicization, we need to get the message across that higher education institutions are about education and formation, and that's the work that I think, we're looking at when it comes to conveying the value of higher education, she added. So basically, they're saying what I did, is that people who are afraid simply because they're conservative and they see higher education as liberal, that should not scare them. That they should, that they're at that age where they should welcome different ideas and different ways of looking at things. Unless you don't want to do that, in which case, okay, fine. But the only legit thing that they should be, especially when you're being told a bunch of lies about what college does. Now, if you go to a state, again, that deals with policies that can affect you, then obviously, yeah, you should definitely think about going to a school in a different state. Because then you're in a situation where, things could go badly for you very quickly. So that I can understand. I can't understand the conservatives who are afraid of going to liberal institutions or what they perceive as liberal institutions simply because they feel like they won't make friends or that people won't listen to them. The whole point of college is to engage with these different messages. So you see how other people live. That is the point of college. I mean, like I mentioned Madison, UW Wisconsin. Did I say UW Wisconsin? University of Wisconsin-Madison. They have a college Republicans group on campus. It's not strictly a liberal school. Now, are they in a liberal town? Absolutely. But that doesn't mean that conservative voices don't exist. Conservative voices exist in liberal towns and vice versa. That is just the way it works. It is Marjorie Taylor Greene's fever dream that conservatives all live in one area and liberals all live in a different area. That is not how reality works. And as long as you treat people decently and they don't feel like they're being personally attacked, I don't mean verbally, but literally attacked, then it should be no problem. Now, again, if you're choosing schools that based on certain policies that the state has that you feel could jeopardize your well-being, then that's absolutely a legit reason to not go to a certain state. Because of course you wouldn't want, if you're LGBT plus, you certainly wouldn't want to go to the Middle East. Possibly Jordan. I think Jordan's pretty cool about the LGBT plus community. I could be wrong though, but I think they are. But for the most part, you wouldn't want to be caught dead there because that's what would happen to you. Or, you wouldn't want to go to Russia. So, just like you wouldn't go to certain countries because you care about your well-being, you wouldn't want to go to certain states. So, by extension, you don't want to go to certain schools because not so much because you'll be drowned out for your voice, but that if something were to happen, you wouldn't get the support you need. So anyway, that is all I have for this article. And with that, I will see you guys in the next video.